Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Brandon, your trusted realtor, and I'm coming to you with another great episode. I want to spend a little time talking to you about the construction, the process of constructing the money that you need in order to get into the type of home or property that you need. Remember what I say, that owning a property is a deeply personal decision. And part of that personal decision is coming up with a strategy and the plan that's necessary for you in order to have the funds to get into a property. Quite frequently, many people leverage down payment and closing cost assistance. And that is specifically what I want to talk to you today generally. Not about specific down payment and closing cost programs that are here in DC, Maryland, or Virginia. But I want to talk to you specifically in general about those programs, how those programs exist, how those programs can help you, how they're generally structured and formatted, and the power that's retained within them. So let's talk generally about the things that you should know as it relates to down payment and closing cost assistance. Down payment assistance programs are paired typically with an FHA program. FHA is the Federal Housing Administration, and they allow you to get into a property by paying 3.5% of the amount that you're looking to get of the home amount or the home value. And so with that, that means that you do not have to pay the standard 20% or less that a traditional bank or financial institution will charge you. And in many instances, for many people, we psych ourselves out about the possibility or what a conventional loan would look like and whether or not you will qualify for it. And in fact, you probably do qualify in many instances for a conventional loan and not necessarily for having to pay 20%. But even if you had a conventional loan where you had to pay 10%. All right, guys, real quick, if you haven't done it already, remember this is Real Estate Life and I am providing, I think, a wealth of information. So go ahead and smash that like button, hit that subscription and that notification button so you stay tuned in. Let's get back to the material. All right. FHA allows you as a first-time home buyer to get in with 3.5%. Well, that 3.5% sets the stage because it sets the baseline for the amount of money that you're going to need in order to close on your property. I traditionally say that when you're looking for a down payment and closing cost assistance program, the search begins in your zip code. It begins with your locality in your area because that's typically how programs are made up. There was an article that was written in 2016 that I found by RealtyTrack, where they found that home buyers who use down payment and closing cost assistance programs saved a total of $17,766. In the survey, home buyers using down payment assistance programs overall saved an average of about $5,900. And overall, over the life of their loan, they ended up saving almost $12,000. And according to the study that was conducted by RealtyTrack, those borrowers continue to save money even when or after they close because they continue to do so because they paid less on their mortgage each and every month. What this does is it creates a significant opportunity to create wealth for you immediately, even if you're not in a place where you have the maximum amount of savings. And so you probably ask yourself, what is the amount of savings or money that I will need in order to begin the process to buying a home? I always say that begins at a range, anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000. That's usually a good starting point because that will cover some of the immediate fees that you need. Remember, those upfront costs that are going to be associated with getting into a home are going to include your down payment. Well, excuse me, it's actually going to include your earnest money deposit, and that's going to be roughly 1%. Now, sometimes if it is a seller's market like we just came out of, or that we're still in the midst of, then you'll find that sometimes you'll be paying more than 1% for that earnest money deposit. And then you have the home inspection, and the home inspection usually is going to be $750 or less, depending on if there are additional add-ons like a radon inspection, and you most certainly need a pest inspection, which will run you about $100 or so dollars. So that range of $7,000 to $10,000 is going to put you in a good place in order to be able to dive into the market. And in order to fill the gap for the rest of the funds you need, you can leverage your local down payment and closing cost assistance program. Let's think about this scenario because some people may be saying, hey, well, that's not a significant amount. Let's break this down over looking at an actual transaction. If you're looking to buy a house that's $400,000, then and you qualified and you need 3% in order to put down in order to get into the home, that 3% of that $400,000 is $12,000. For you to save $200 a month, because that's about reasonable, that would take you 60 months to save $200 a month in order to get the 3% that you need. If you were to, if you had a 2% down payment assistance, loan, or a grant, then that cuts that time frame down to 20 months. So it significantly reduces the amount of time and the amount of money that you need up front, because it allows you to fill that gap. And in a market like the market that we're seeing today, and if you're an apprehensive buyer and you're uncertain of whether or not you should make the goal, I always say your litmus test is if you're paying your rent right now and you're paying that rent on time, then that's usually, as well as your other bills, then that's usually a good indicator that you're ready to step out and to begin home ownership and wealth building for yourself. Now, let's talk about how does it work? How does getting the down payment and assistance work? The lender is the person in this transaction that completes the application on your behalf. Now, typically, you do have to use a participating lender, and I like to think of this as a nice way of saying using a preferred lender without actually creating like a bias or like discrimination for a preferred lender or set of lenders. These participating lenders have just filled out the paperwork and they've done the requisite application and familiarized themselves with the requirements of the down payment assistance program in order for you to access that money. Also, they have certified underwriters who look at all the information that's needed and submits that to whatever the locality or the nonprofit institution that's going to give you the money that you need. Now, you may ask, who does the application? The lender is the one who does the application on your behalf as well. They will commit the application to the certifying official. They'll submit that information, and all you have to do is let them know that that's the program that you're interested in. That, again, if you were listening to my earlier video, that is all a part of the interview process with the lender, is putting the lender on notice that you are interested in using or leveraging these types of programs or assistance, whatever it is that you find that's available in the ecosystem that's going to give you the funds needed if they are a participating lender in order for you to close on the loan. Now, some things to be mindful of is that there are often times that you have to complete a class, and the class, a home counseling class, and you typically have to use a HUD certified counselor. The best way to do that is by going to HUD.gov, going into the upper right hand corner, they have a search box there, entering in HUD certified counselor or HUD housing counselor, and then that pulls up a map, and you can click on your geographic area, not just for the Mid-Atlantic area, but for all over. And you can identify a host of nonprofit organizations that are going to be right for you to help you get the information and the class that you need in order to submit that certification to the lender as part of your application packet. Let's talk about the types of down payment assistance programs. You have grants, and grants, which are essentially gifts that are provided by the organization or the nonprofit entity, and they never have to be repaid back. The next type you have are loans. Loans are usually second mortgages, which come along with the primary mortgage that you're getting for the total amount of the money from a lender, and that has to be paid down along with your main mortgage. There are different tenants that are associated with that, so it's important that depending on the down payment assistance program, you understand whether it is an amortized or non-amortized, which means you pay it monthly or you don't pay it monthly, and also get a clear sense of what the interest rate is and what the short-term and long-term impact of that is going to be for you. The other type of loan is a second mortgage, which has deferred payments. I mentioned that before, and that means that it only has to be paid when you move, sell, or refinance the property. And then another type is the type that is forgiven over a set number of years. Typically, that time frame is 5, but often you will see 15 or 20 years And there's no need to repay it back. And the only time you, again, have to repay those type of loans back typically is when you move, sell, or refinance a property. So again, the devil is in the detail. And here it's important to make sure that you go through and understand the type of down payment and the type of down payment assistance program that you are going to be qualified for or that you're participating in. Also, don't forget that you're participating in this down payment assistance program, and be conscious of the amount of money that you're going to be granted. At any point in time where that loan, for example, terminates, and the stipulation is that the loan ends if you refinance the property. If you get a lower interest rate, let's say in the future sometime interest rates drop to 2% and you want to refinance, you will have to pay back X amount of dollars as part of that process. That could impact whether or not you can refinance, because the lending institution may require that you have to pay those funds up front or maybe even on the back end. So again, remember to file this information away because it will be very important to you going forward. Now, let's talk about the most common requirements for a down payment assistance program. Some of the most common requirements, while not always universal, but these are things that I've seen consistently across programs and across states, both local and national. First is that the participant has to be a first-time home buyer. This can either be set in that this has to be your first property, or this has to be your first property within 3 years. I've seen some programs where they've said that you cannot have owned a property within the last 5 years. So it's important to be sure you understand the eligibility requirements as it relates to home ownership. If this is your first time as a home buyer, then you outright meet that requirement. The next requirement I've seen consistently is income limits, that either the buyer or the family unit's income is taken into consideration. It's important depending on the program, especially if you're layering programs, which means that you're using more than one program and putting them together, that you have a clear understanding on whether or not they evaluate just your income as a person who's looking to obtain the loan, or whether or not they're looking at the income because you are a joint family unit. There's a husband and a wife, or there's a couple, and they even though one person's name is going to be on the loan, they're looking at everyone's income in order to determine qualification. So it's really important that you understand that. Also, another common theme is participating lender. The down payment assistance program is usually giving out thousands of dollars to an individual, and they want to make sure that a lender has met the terms of the agency and that they're going to be practicing and providing the requisite documents that are needed, so that way the government entity can satisfy their auditing and making sure that the money is going towards the individuals who need it. And so typically these programs require that a lender has to be a participant in their program. And the next is the assistance is either a grant or a loan, and forgiveness varies in some form or fashion. All of the monies that you'll receive in a down payment assistance program, in some way, shape, or form or fashion, you'll either have to pay them back, or most commonly, it'll be forgiven in some shape. And regardless of if it's a grant and it's forgiven outright, or there's a time delay to that forgiveness, it's important that you understand that and you can factor that into your overall life planning and strategic planning. So when it comes to down payment assistance programs, this should almost be a no-brainer. The idea here is that you tack the program on to FHA, which is going to be an additional vehicle. As long as you qualify for a loan with a lender, you'll be able to use an FHA loan type. That FHA loan type will then empower you then using these down payment assistance programs that's in your neighborhood to access a property. And the name of the game, if you're not an owner right now, is changing that. Because the net wealth of an individual that owns a property is 20 to 40 times that of someone that rents. So put yourself in a position to be prosperous, to be exponentially better tomorrow than you are today. My name is Brandon. I'm your trusted realtor. I look forward to being your source and your resource for all of your real estate related needs. Remember, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and stay tuned in and in tune to the latest and greatest. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.